You're saying he's a scholar, he's a great poet, he has civilizational history, he must be a polymath because he's talking about all these historical things in the Quran, according to them. He's talking about the ancient Egyptians, he's talking about the Romans, he's talking about the Persians, he's a theologian, okay? So he's a historian, he's a theologian, like he must have had this language ability as well, he must have. And he was a linguist par excellence, but not just that. He was a sociological leader. He was a political leader, and he was the military general that he has to be in the conversation for the best generals of all time. So you're telling me one man can do all of that? But one of the arguments for the veracity of Islam is the success of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And what we'll do is we'll think about how we can do something similar in a legal fashion with the Zionists. Because this whole story shows you the importance of covert operations. If you have a person who looks, for example, like a Zionist, like my friend over here with a hat. No, I'm only kidding. Oh, but why not penetrate? Why don't we have, penetration happening? Okay, illegal penetration happening into organizations which are opposing organizations, where people literally pretend, because it's happening to us, we know it. The CID are doing it, the MI5 are doing it. They're probably listening to exactly what we have to say now. Someone in some desk somewhere is listening to me. So, okay, if we're going to play this game, we might as well play it. It's not illegal for us to do this. Is it illegal in the United Kingdom or the United States or any part of Europe for someone to pretend to be a Zionist, for example, or to be such and such, and go into an organization and to get information and then come back and report back to the other organization and say this is what they're saying? It's not illegal to do that. So if they're going to do it with us, is it not now high time for us to do it to them? To be honest, the Muslims have been too honest about this situation. This is a situation where it's al-harbu khid'a. Al-harbu khid'a. That war is deception. By the way, this is a prophetic hadith, but this is also something which is mentioned in Sun Tzu's Art of War, in many different, in Robert Greene and these charlatans, these guys who just, and this guy Robert Greene, who's never mentioned anything about Islam. I'm very surprised. He didn't mention anything about like Khalid bin Walid or any of the Islamic rulers or any of that. It's ajib, isn't it? We've read his books, he hasn't said anything, has he? Not even once. So I don't know if he's anti or something, but put him to the side, we're going to refute him when his time comes. But the point is, al-harbu khid'a. War is deception. And so we need to sometimes be like that, especially when we're at war. Media war, information war, this war, that war, but we can't break the law, because if you break the law you lose. Then they'll put the narrative on you. We can't break the law, but at the same time we need to do this. We need to invest in deception. I know this is something you probably never heard any Islamic speaker so-called say, but we as the Muslim world need to invest in deception of the enemy. We need to invest in this, whether it's on IT level, okay, because there's so many. I went to Pakistan, there's so many IT guys that are so amazing at IT. How many of them are being invested in the right places to get the industrial secrets of the enemies of Islam that want to kill the Muslims and hurt them in a way which is fine according to the law of that particular country, for example? Why don't we invest in this in a proper way? Look at this. This is showing you is the high IQ military genius of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Now you have drones and all these kind of things. And I was having a conversation before about this. And this military guy, Scott Ritter, has this discussion about the drones and all those kind of things. And he's talking about now the navies are becoming more and more irrelevant because drones are going to take them all out. If you think about, they're sitting duck targets and all that, and the drones can do so many things. I got my son a toy the other day, and he's playing with it, and I'm thinking, my God, this is a toy. I never had this toy 10 years ago. 100 years. I never had this toy 15 years ago when I was a kid, when I was this boy's age, 20 years old, 20 years ago. I don't have it, but he's making it fly and all this kind of stuff. And so why don't we have technologies that go and see what's happening, so we can make strategies? We need this, akhi. So this is what we need to But this should not be employed with Muslims among themselves. وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. And there is a verse in Surah Al-Anfal actually, which basically states the following. It says, verily, those who disbelieve spend their money to hinder men from the path of Allah. Because this was after Badr, they started to do an effort where they're collecting money to go for another one because of the humiliation. إن الذين إن الذين كفروا ينفقون أموالهم ليصدوا عن سبيل الله فسينفقونها ثم تكون عليهم حسرة ثم يغلبون والذين كفروا إلى جهنم يحشرون. That certainly the people, those who have disbelieved, they are putting their money ينفقون أموالهم ليصدوا عن سبيل الله, so that they can stop the path of Allah. فسينفقونها. So this فَسَ is they will. This is a prediction of the Quran. فسينفقونها ثم تكون عليهم حسرة ثم يغلبون. That eventually they'll be defeated and there will be a regret for them. Hasra is like they'll be regretting this. Yes. So this is a key ayah. And so the general leader of that particular war was Abu Sufyan. Obviously, Khalid ibn Walid was there as well, and he was very instrumental in this particular war. We started to understand his military genius and so on. But let's pause here, because what was the name of that guy who made the Harvard lecture on Khalid ibn Walid?
Professor Roy Casagranda.
Professor Roy Casagranda, he made this whole thing about Khalid ibn Walid. And his argument was that Khalid ibn Walid was one of the top three, his words, most influential military leaders of all time. Okay? And he explained why. And he started going through the battles and stuff like that. And he's never been defeated. And it's very interesting because if you consider, there's different ways of thinking about this. Who are the best generals of all time? There's different ways of considering that. One way that people do, I've seen some of these things online as well, is that they look at the amount of battles that have been won by that particular leader. Some of them look at, okay, well, you could win a battle, but who are you winning it against? In what context? And so on. So people put Napoleon up there, for example. Alexander, they put up there.
Roy had Professor Casagranda, he said it was Alexander first, then he put Tutmosis, the Egyptian, he put him second, then third he put Khalid.
Khalid ibn Walid is number 3.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember him saying that he's top 3. But putting that to the side, there's no doubt, I mean, most people that are fair-minded, they'll put Khalid somewhere in the top 5. And
I'd say the difference between all those generals, that they had a strong empire that was competing, while Khalid ibn Walid was just a few Arabs, a few camels, and then they defeated the two empires of their time. So I think there's a difference between Napoleon and Khalid ibn Walid. I think it's far superior. Sort of Allah.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But you know, with Khalid ibn Walid, he himself, he admitted this, and this is why I want to bring this to your attention. He admitted that I knew that we couldn't defeat the Muslim enemy. Like when he was with the Mushrikites, he realized after all of this, even though he was instrumental in this war, like you can imagine, he was instrumental in this war, and he eventually led the Mushrikites to some kind of salvageable, you could say, stalemate victory, depending on how you look at it, right? He eventually led them to that because of a tactical error, not by the Prophet. In fact, you'll see that this tactical error was to do with the soldiers, with the archers. In fact, we'll come to that. But he himself, after all these engagements with the Prophet Muhammad, he realized near the end that, wait, this is a different level that I'm dealing with here. He himself admits this. And so if you consider that the greatest, according to these guys, is admitting of the military superiority of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, so it would follow that actually the Prophet ﷺ should be in that discussion, even just from a secular perspective. Now, of course, from a secular perspective, people are going to differ. They're going to say, no, Alexander this and Napoleon that and whatever. But the fact that he's even in that discussion, and he is in that discussion by the secularists or the non-Islamic military buffs, yeah, is a miracle in its own right. It's interesting, isn't it? Because he was a political leader. He's in the conversation for the greatest military general of all time. And the Quran that It's been inspired by God, we believe, as Muslims. We're memorizing it and we're living by it and so on. So this already is another layer of the argument, which is Islam is true, because how could one man be so successful in so many unrelated fields? How can you expect one man, oh, he's the greatest poet of all time, oh, he's the greatest military of all time, well, or at least in their understanding, one of the greatest military generals of all time. Oh, he's one of the best sociological leaders of all time. Oh, he's this. What kind of thing is you making this? What kind of thing are you saying about this?
He's also multilingual as well.
Multilingual. But yeah, because if you see, look, I mean, Alexander. You could say he was the best military general of all time. You can make the argument. But you cannot make the argument that he had the most sociological transformative effect. That is not an argument. You can make the argument Napoleon, okay, if you really want to go there, he's the best general of all time. I know why you're making that argument. I don't agree with that argument, obviously. But that's for the sake of argument's sake. But you can't say that he had a religious impact. He had no religious impact. Napoleon, what religious impact did he have? Comparable to even the contemporaries of his day. So the fact that you have one man that is so successful in unrelated fields, this transcends polymath. Because a polymath is, okay, one guy, he's a scholar, but he's a scholar in multiple fields. But you're not even saying that this guy is only a scholar. You're saying he's a scholar, he's a great poet, he has civilizational history, he must be a polymath because he's talking about all these historical things in the Quran, according to them. He's talking about the ancient Egyptians, he's talking about the Romans, he's talking about the Persians, and he's a theologian, okay? So he's a historian, he's a theologian, like he must have had this language ability as well, he must have. And he was a linguist par excellence, but not just that. He was a sociological leader. He was a political leader, and he was the military general that he has to be in the conversation for the best generals of all time. So you're telling me one man can do all of that? But one of the arguments for the veracity of Islam is the success of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is certainly one of the arguments.
You can say it's all the social stuff as well. He had successful marriages, friendships that lasted a long time. So he's successful in everything.
Beautiful, excellent. And this is a great point, and this is why we're going to refute Robert Greene in the future, because this battle shows you the leadership of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the leadership style. And the leadership style of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not Machiavellian, which is playing checkers. 48 laws of power. Some of it is true. Not like a harb khida, war is deception. Okay, some of it is true. But why were these tribes and these people and these devotees, 700 of them, because we know that in the beginning when this battle started, okay, there was about 1,000 Muslims. And then 300 of them went away with Abdullah ibn Ubay, the munafiq. He is a munafiq. The hypocrite. He was a hypocrite. And he took 300 of these guys and he decided to do this last minute to distract the Muslim people.
Jazakum Allahu khairan for watching. We hope this video boosted your iman and brought you closer to Allah. If you found it beneficial, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for daily inspiration from the best scholars and speakers. May Allah bless you and increase you in goodness. See you tomorrow, inshallah.